right? So you might as well be 100% committed in everything that you do. But as we all know, if we do that, ultimately there will be sacrifices in whatever we choose.
I think sacrifice is fine actually. It's a necessity. I think it's just part of life.
Everybody has things which they call priority. Everyone has things that are important to them.
Right? There's always a roadblock or a barrier that you have to overcome to reach the goal, right? The bigger the goal, the bigger the obstacle. For success to happen, sacrifice is necessary. You always have to give something up.
Something I share with my clients also, if you don't come from a successful family, then a successful family must come from you. You have to be the one to do it. Welcome guys back to episode 3 of ATG. Today we're going to touch on a very challenging topic, but as to start things off, I'd like to share what one of my favorite coaches, Jordan Peterson, said. We are playing a life or death game, but ultimately it's one that we lose because everyone will die, right? So you might as well be 100% committed in everything that you do. But as we all know, if we do that, ultimately there will be sacrifices in whatever we choose, right? If we choose fitness, then we have to put in the sacrifice or the price of having to go to the gym every single day. If we choose success, we will ultimately be having to pay the price of, for example, getting enemies, burning bridges. So where we are right now, we have undoubtedly burned a number of bridges, but today we're going to find out if those were bridges that was worth burning, or perhaps maybe we should have set them ablaze even brighter.
Wait, so you're saying that like ultimately what we gave up, is it?
Yeah.
To reach where we are? That's like the topic of the day. To put it from a layman perspective, right? Okay, I don't know about you guys. I feel like I gave up quite a bit. But in the sense, I wouldn't change my choice, but it's like no regrets, right? Because it is the theory of opportunity cost, right? When you choose something, there's always something else, or I guess a gazillion other things that you're giving up the opportunity to do, right? When I chose to do a certain career, then you can't be a doctor and a lawyer and an astronaut unless maybe you're like Johnny Sins. Other than that, you can't really do all of that, right, at one time. So ultimately, whatever you choose, there is sacrifice, and I think sacrifice is fine actually. It's a necessity, right? But ultimately, as long as it gets you where you want to go, I think it's just part of life.
And behind this financial advisory curtain, I think there's layers of sacrifice that many of us, or maybe our viewers, are not privy to. But I would say, even in just these 9 years that we have had, every layer of sacrifice that we have put out, we have been rewarded double or triple in everything back. I'm not sure if you guys share the same sentiments as me.
I mean, I don't consciously think about it, I mean, in that way, right? But naturally, I think for us to have been doing this as long as we did, if the results or I think output of what we were getting wasn't at least, I think, corresponding at some level to the level of input, I don't think we have been here for so long. Let's be real, right? I think in terms of sacrifices, there are a lot of different ways to look at it, right? But I've never really seen the pains and efforts of what we are doing here as really like sacrifice. I've never really thought about them as like, wow, I'm giving up this aspect of my life, I'm giving up this or that or whatever so that I can do this other thing else, right? And it's funny because a lot of times we tend to think in binaries, right, whereby it's either we have A or B, C or D, and if we want to get X, we have to give up Y and Z. There's a lot of thinking in that terms, but after a while you kind of realize that actually in a lot of cases it's never so black and white. And if you know what you're doing, it's actually possible to marry both as well, where you can actually have your cake and eat it, just perhaps not in the exact way that you originally envisioned it. But before even getting there, I think, okay, I'm sure the viewers want to actually hear, what were the tangible things we had to, in a way, give up or sacrifice in the earlier days. I'll leave you guys some of it later, but one of the things which I was very happy to give up was, I think, my time firstly as a student, back then, I gave up time for studying, attending tutorials, lectures. I gave up my grades, basically no longer became something of importance to me, right? Because I mean, I always figured, right? Why do people work so hard in school? Why do people throughout their entire lives fixate so much upon grades, especially in the Asian society? Right? It's because there's always this idea and notion that we have been drilled into since young, where good grades equate to eventually a good job, right? And what do most people think of when they think of a good job? Number one thing is the pay, right? No one's gonna look at you and say that, you know, if you're drawing like, let's say 1 km, but you have like, let's say 20 hours a day free, a lot of work-life balance, no one's going to look at you and say like, hey, that's a great job. But if let's say you are making like, I know, hypothetically, let's say you are in investment banking or in a top consulting firm, right? You are making, let's say, 20K a month, but you only have maybe like, you know, you're working like 100+ hour weeks. People are far more likely to say that that's a good or even prestigious job than the first one. I quickly figured that, hey, if I want to make a good living or career for myself, and I'm able to do that without needing grades to get there, right? Why do I really need the grades that much then? So that was the first time I actually really made the conscious decision that, hey, you know, I don't think this is that important to me anymore. I'm just going to let it take a back seat. Back then, I didn't quite think of it as a sacrifice, but I think at some level, I always knew that I was giving up a potential safety net, right? Especially for a degree from NUS. I still graduated with the degree, but with grades that I'm not exactly proud of, I guess you could say.
I guess the definition of sacrifice means that you're giving up something that you really want, or something else that is a bigger priority, or something else that you want more, right? Right, a question to you guys, right? If you're doing what you really want to do and nothing really else is that much of a priority, then are you sacrificing then?
I think if the lines are so clear, like it's a very clear binary choice between yes and no, then it's an obvious situation. But I think what makes it so difficult for us as humans to manage is that our emotions tell us otherwise. Like we place everything else as maybe 3, 4, or 5/10, and maybe the important ones as like maybe 6 or 7/10. So they're still rather close to each other, but they're not that far enough for us to sacrifice it straight away.
But I think it's what you believe, like, you know, at the age, okay, I'm not going to say how old we are, but like, we're at the age where people are settling down, you know, buying houses together, getting married, right, having children at some point or so. So I'm sure, you know, in your gatherings or what, people will ask you, so when you get there, I mean, I'm sure, right, you guys get that. So to me, it's, I mean, till now, okay, I don't know whether in the future, right, but till now, I don't think that it's something that really bothers me. Like, it's not something that I think about. So I mean, I didn't go through my life thinking that, okay, I'm going to get married at age 28 and that's like my priority. Like, you know, I die, that must happen, and I will do anything to make that happen, you know, disregard everything else. When you have that as an idea and you realize that when you speak to some of your friends, their priority is really to start a family, to start them, you know, find a good partner, get married, BTO, get a house, have a kid by age 32, you know, for them, for their parents, grandparents, whatever it is that they're doing it for. And then when they make that choice, that in a sense, that is what they really want to do with their life. But I don't see myself doing that. That's why when people say, oh, so you know, you are quite successful in your career, right? Is it because you have to sacrifice like having a family? But honestly speaking, right, I don't think that I would say yes, because it's not really at this moment, or has never been my priority till this day. So I can't say that I sacrifice that particular thing.
Yeah, I fully agree also. I mean, I think that's a good reason why 3 of us are still, you know, we are not married now, right? For myself, you know, settling down, things like that. You know, would I want it eventually at some point? Yeah, I would say so. But is it something I've, you know, lost sleep over before? I wouldn't say so. Like, you know, I don't think there's a timeline or clock to put on ourselves for that. When it comes, it comes. But that's the thing, right? Everybody has things which they call priority to. Everyone has things that are important to them. If this is, you know, if getting married, if settling down is something that's important to you, right? And you want to have kids, you know, I think the timeline is pretty important, right? Then all power to you. Right, that's something you should make arrangements around. But I think for us, right, for myself, career has by and far been the number one thing in our lives which we had put ahead far of anything else for the longest time, right? Which is why when we have to make sacrifices, right, around it, we've never really seen it as a sacrifice, right? Because I think something, you know, you have sacrifice and then you also have the regret part of it, and you have sacrifice and you don't regret it, or you do it time and time again, right? I think if you regret doing it, then perhaps it, you know, maybe I think the sacrifice feels more painful. But otherwise, I think like what Reuben said earlier, it's about opportunity cost. right? You're basically giving up something now because you believe that something else later on comes into play. It's going to be far more fruitful or worthwhile. And you're okay with that, right? And I think that's been the story of our lives for the longest time.
So a lot of influencers have also said that when they talk about sacrifice, right, it's not about saying yes to all those things, right? It's actually saying no to all those things that you don't want. And that is by prioritizing the things that you actually want more instead.
Should it be saying no to things that you want?
No, it's saying no to the things that you
But
don't.
if I don't want it, then it's not really a sacrifice, no?
No, it's just,
Like, I need to want the thing that I'm choosing not to do. Then that's a sacrifice.
I think it's also, I think what Leo is trying to say is, sometimes you know what you don't want or don't need, but yet because of maybe peer pressure or whatever.
So that you have to do.
So for example, I would. I mean, just an example. Maybe let me know if I'm on the right path, right? So let's say you want to wake up early. You want to stick to a certain regime or habit you have. But now it's 10 p.m. You want to go to bed, but your friend he chose you out and say, bro, let's go for a drink, or it's Friday night, let's go to the club. Maybe the usual you would have loved to indulge in such things like parties or whatever it is. But having that, I think, power to deliberately say no, even though it's something you enjoy, because you prioritize something else instead. Right, so that I think is a form of sacrifice as well.
So it's not like you really want to do it, but you wouldn't mind doing it.
you wouldn't mind doing it, but then you are saying no to it in favor of something bigger.
Fair. That's fair to say. And I think if you talk about sacrifice, right, I do see it as like a necessity, right? Because for all of us, especially in business and in life, right, we all set goals. I mean, if you're watching this, and I hope you do set goals for yourself, like whether it's personal goals or career goals or whatever not, right? So when you set a goal, you must transcend an obstacle to achieve the goal, right? There's always a roadblock or a barrier that you have to overcome to reach the goal, right? The bigger the goal, the bigger the obstacle or the barrier that you have to transcend. And if you think about it, right, everybody in the world, assuming that they have the same goal as you, will have to transcend a similar or break through a similar obstacle.
Yeah.
Right? But not everybody will choose to put in the effort, the resources and the time to do so. Right? But if you choose to do it and you achieve your goal, then I guess that's where you sort of sacrificed, whatever time, opportunity costs, other choices that you might have to go and get your goal. And I think that by doing that, right, by transcending the obstacle to the goal, and of course as big as possible, right, that makes it the more sweeter. Right? That makes it, you feel better, you feel like it's an accomplishment or an achievement when you do that. Because if it's so easy, with no sacrifice, assuming let's say we can all hit our goals without sacrificing a single thing, everyone can do that. Then in a way,
What's the point, right?
yeah, there's no honor in that. There's no victory. There's no accomplishment, right? Because you didn't give anything up. You didn't put anything on the line to get here. You didn't bet anything, right? There's no downside. It was easy. Everyone can do it, right? Then what's the point?
Then it brings no value to the word glory already.
Yeah, that's right. And ultimately, if we're talking about success, then success is only possible by definition if only few can achieve it.
Fair.
If everyone can achieve success, then you just scrape the word because it doesn't exist, right? Because everyone will be the same. So for success to happen, sacrifice is necessary. If it's not even in the equation, can you truly say that you achieve success? I don't think so, because you always have to give something up. And to me, that is the sacrificial part where it's always necessary. Whatever they do. I mean, it doesn't have to be business. It can be life. It can be, in sports, whatever lah. And I think when I think about it, and knowing it's necessary, then I've also met people who then tell me that, I don't want to sacrifice, right? I don't mind having all these, I don't mind achieving all these or getting the rewards or the pros, but I don't think I want to sacrifice this. I mean, of course, they don't say like that. They say, I don't want to give up my time, I don't want to give up time with my family, I don't want to inconvenience this, that, or whatever, or even like giving up a secure, stable job to jump into entrepreneurship. That's also sacrifice, but I don't do any of it. If you don't do any of it, then zero chance you get to success, right? Because it's still comfort zone at the end of the day.
So I'm sure our viewers, of course, they understand this concept. But I'm also, I think what they also want to find out is what exactly were unique sacrifices to us that we perhaps have gone through. We may have liked it, we may have not. It may have hurt us deep. We may have secretly celebrated in the dark. But I'm sure there must be a unique sacrifice that we have personally gone through that have made us who we are today also. Not sure if you guys have an example in mind that you want to share.
when people think about our industry, I think when people think about embarking upon our industry, one of the most typical concerns or worries people typically have is like, I'm scared I'm going to lose my friends and all of that, right? And I can see why that's a concern at some level, right? Well, that didn't exactly happen to me, right? I mean, for the most part, I would say it happened in a way in which I did not quite expect back then, right? And this was, I would say it cost me more than one relationship before, romantically, right? Not friendship in the past. I wouldn't even say that it's any else's blame or fault but mine. Back then I was so obsessed with work. I was working 7 days a week. I mean, I was basically prioritizing just my growth at work, where I started to sacrifice and forego time spent with people who, on hindsight, I should have perhaps give more attention to, right? But because at that point of time, I, call it what you will, right? Perhaps I was blinded by the lure of success or whatever it is, right? I chose to, I made my choices. But if you ask me, do I regret what I did? Honestly, I don't, right? I'm not saying I don't regret it because I've reached success now, right? So that's why it's worth it. It's not so much that. It's more so that I think ultimately whoever we are today, it's a byproduct of all our past experiences, the good and bad, the beautiful, the ugly, right? And if I didn't make the kind of, I think, mistakes that I did back then, it's very unlikely that I would have been able to, at some level, learn and grow from them eventually over the years, and to have, I think, progressed into the person that I've become today. Yeah. So, I mean, if you ask me what are the biggest things that stick up in mind for things I've given up, it's always people. I mean, nothing is more pronounced or powerful than the idea of human connections, right? And the ones I did give up eventually were the ones I least expected that I would ever lose, but I did. And, it's something that I live with. I don't regret it, per se, like I mentioned. I acknowledge it.
I feel part of obsession also means that, when we enter this new state, this state of obsession, we indirectly absorb or pull people into this whirlpool of new mental modes that we enter as well. And that can be both good and bad, right? So people may inevitably be dragged along, and then we sacrifice our ability to compromise. We give up what they want in exchange for what we want. But I also feel that in this area of, like what Rube said also, right, transcending to higher versions of yourself, I think somewhere along the way, someone is going to get hurt. And if we, at the end of it, I think if we come out stronger and we find a way to give back to both, to them or to society, whatever, to me, that's my form of justification. I'm not to say that I'm trying to hurt anyone, but I'm going into it with very good intentions. And whoever wants to come along on this ride with me to greater heights or a higher version of ourselves, I'm more than happy to pull you along. But if I hurt some people along the way, I think that's part of the sacrifice that I'm willing to make also, to achieve the things that I want.
Relationships are a two-way street, right? I mean, whether it's friend, romantic, familial, right, whatever it is. So if you, and I think time spent is what most people expect. Yeah. Right. Ironically, I'm okay with very little time spent because I know that I cannot, right? But very few people are okay with that, right? So in a sense, you cannot expect the other party to just accept you for who they are, who you are, right? But also because you don't give them what they need, right? But in some sense, I do believe that you can strike a compromise, right? Like for myself, currently, of course, I'm in a relationship, right? And when I first met her, one of the first 10 sentences I've said to her, right? In those 10 sentences, right? One of it is, before we go any further, right? I want you to know that I'm going to prioritize my career and my work. If you're not okay with that, right, then we can just not continue from this moment onwards.
Are you still with her today?
Yeah, of course. So what I'm saying is that it's possible for it to work, right? If you put it up front, and it's about understanding each other's priorities as well, right? And being truthful about it. Because I think when relationships fail or whatnot, right, it's usually because of expectations. You have that expectation of yourself, but her expectation of you is different, and then that's where you sort of fall apart, right? So I think it's doable. To me, I think it's doable in the end, but it's difficult, but doable. You have to find the right person. But I think my own sacrifice to get to where I feel that I am is losing the people that were on the journey with you at some point, but sort of fall out
along the way. Yeah.
right? And I think sacrifice in that aspect is because you actually sacrifice a part of you for them, right? You spend time to nurture them, mentor them, counsel them, I don't know, give them therapy at some point, right? You know, go down with them to do the stuff, you know, train them, teach them. And at the end of the day, like they decide to leave for whatever reason, or either they can't make it or whatever lah, right? Or maybe it's even they want to stay, but you know, just like what we discussed in the previous episode, right? That you have to be sort of ruthless and say, hey, you know, maybe this is not for you lah, right? I think that in itself is one of the biggest sacrifices I have to make, because some of them I was like, even of course we were working together, right? But I would count as my friends lah. Right, and it's difficult to cut people you care about, right? Especially you know that you're on like a one-stop express to success. But you need to say, hey, we're sorry, this is your stop. You need to get off the train.
I get what you're saying, and I agree on a good level also. I don't see that really as a sacrifice. Okay, why?
Maybe it's more like you can see that it's like you sacrifice your humanity. Because in a perfect environment, right, ideal we can bring them along with us to success, right? I would choose that, right? But I know that I have to choose either one of them. They stay, we are fucked. More lah, in a way. But they go, we succeed. So that I feel that's like the sacrifice that I had to contend with, right? But it's not a very run-of-the-mill kind of layman kind of sacrifice.
Maybe just to chime in here a bit and give a bit of context to our viewers as well. So what Rube also, correct me if I'm wrong, what we're also trying to say is that in our role, we wear many hats. And sometimes it's very hard to draw the line between each hat very clearly.
Yeah.
Sometimes we are a friend. Sometimes we are inevitably a parent, sometimes a manager, and sometimes we have to be a disciplinarian as well. But in every role that we uphold, there's a certain objective or purpose behind it as well. But I mean, for me, I can't say I have always been right in every role that I've played.
Yeah, fair.
And I think this is a very big challenge and sacrifice as being a leader as well. You never are able to have the perfect cards to play. You never know what will be the right question or the right answer to every situation. Sometimes you make huge mistakes, sometimes you make small mistakes, sometimes you make the best decision, sometimes you happen to make a decision that happen to be the right one as well. But in every way possible, we try to find to make the best outcome for everybody, where everyone can benefit in some way, a win-win position, if I may say that.
The topic is interesting, right? Because as I think about it, I keep asking myself, as you guys talk also, I ask myself, like, you know, what is it that I've sacrificed across the years or even now, right, to get to number one or to succeed, right? But funnily enough, right, like maybe, like for example, sometimes we have meetings, you know, after midnight or very early, like 7 a.m. in the morning, because there's no other time that we can fit it in. And you ask a normal person, every Singaporean, they say, oh yeah, that's sacrifice. You sacrifice your sleep, you sacrifice your time with your family, your alone time, whatever it is, for your career, for your job, right? But the truth is, I don't see it as that, because maybe
it's been just normalized to us.
Yeah, maybe it's normalized. Maybe it's just because we got such a great purpose. Like our purpose, our goals, you know, is so strong that like everything else is put aside. It does a priority. And when that happens, right, then back to our previous point we were discussing before, is that then you can't term it as sacrifice, because you earn sacrificing anything that you wouldn't, you know, be okay to lose anyway, right? But I guess that also in a sense is also dangerous, right? Because, you know, there's a fine line between going all out for your career and also, you know, being like ultra workaholic.
Yeah.
Your whole life just revolves around that. I don't think we want to get to that stage. But that's why I think it's difficult for me to think what I've sacrificed, because I don't think that I've sacrificed much that I wouldn't want to. But if you compare that to a normal person that's probably me watching this, they would think that we probably sacrifice like them a lot, like every day probably, right? But I don't see it as such.
Yeah, sacrifice could be expected as well. Like, would you guys trust a doctor that doesn't know his medicine? Or would you guys trust a chef that doesn't know his ingredients? Similarly, you wouldn't follow a leader who is not fully committed into his craft or into pursuing the best for his team and for himself also, ma?
Then, okay, speaking about leadership, right? Has there been an instance where like you felt like as a leader to your people, right, you have sacrificed, but like they like didn't know, or like, you know, you kept it a secret, or for some reason, like, you know, it didn't go to plan?
I wouldn't say we kept it a secret, but I think probably you guys have experienced this as well. Sometimes giving them or giving people the answer may not be the best way to solve the situation. You have to guide them or lead them to the answer. By the process of doing so, you may come across as someone who is like not willing to help, right? I'll give you an example. Let's say if someone comes, Don, I come to you and maybe I'm a junior consultant. I have absolutely no idea how to approach this situation, this problem. But I have had maybe some personal disciplinary issues that is causing these setbacks for myself. And so it's not really a technical issue, it's more of a personal issue. And I come to you to help you, to ask you to solve my problems for me. And if you really give me the answer directly, are you really helping me? Or are you just prolonging my suffering by letting me believe that actually I am really not as good as I should be? I should get my shit in order. But by giving me the answer, you have inevitably helped me to believe that like all is well and all I needed was for your final input and then I can go proceed on with my life. So I think it's more of like sometimes people come to you for help. The best way to help them is by asking them the hardest question. How have you been helping yourself first?
I guess like when we talk about sacrifice as a word, right? It's a negative connotation.
Yeah. You're giving up something.
Yeah. But in a sense, I don't see it as such, because to me, as we agreed, it's a necessity, right, to success and to growth. But a person that has never given up anything, right, to get to where they want to go, right, I just find it very difficult to not say trust, but I think I find it very difficult to get on board with their ideals or their values, right? Because you will never know like to what extent are they committed, because people use that as a benchmark, right?
Yeah.
Measure like how far you are willing to go to commit to certain things, or maybe even you as a person, right? In what you do. Right, so I think when people see like someone, okay, we need to sacrifice so much. Let's say maybe people that we work with, someone that will to sacrifice everything to go all out on their career to get that success. I mean, we will all respect this person. Maybe we wouldn't do what he or she does, but I would say this person is deserving of my respect, admiration, because not anyone could make that choice, and we are all privy to our own decisions and choices in life, right? And ultimately, as long as there's no regret, I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think how great, and I think this is a sentiment that runs, I think, throughout all parts of the world, right? Where how great an accomplishment is, right? It's only measured by what was given up in order for it to happen, right? And if you talk about the accomplishment itself without the sacrifice part, typically, it diminishes the weight and actual significance of the thing that was done. But when you bring in the second part, right, what you gave up, suddenly it seems like it's worth so much more. I came across this video, I think it was like an interview or something like a while back, about Michael Phelps. For years in a row, right, he spent almost all his waking time staring at the bottom of a swimming pool floor.
Yeah, that's real commitment.
I got goosebumps, man, when I saw that. I was like, whoa, shit. Like, if you want to be the undisputed best in the world, that's what it takes. I think any great athletes, right, in the world that we can think or talk about across, or it doesn't even have to be a sport, right? Across business, across any field, really. Anything great that was ever accomplished is only that great because someone who got there gave up a shit ton in order to do it. So I think when we think of sacrifice, it's about the cause you are doing it for, right? If you are sacrificing or giving up something for no good reason, then it's a pretty shit sacrifice lah. Maybe you shouldn't even be sacrificing that in the first place, right? But if there's something that you are deeply committed to doing, right? Even if no one stands by you, right? Even if it goes against the fiber and being of everybody else, but in your core, that's what you believe and you stand for, and you're committed to getting there, then I think it is your choice then what you want to give up to get there. And no one else should be able to tell you that whether this is worth or not worth it, right? Because if you want to do and accomplish what no one else in this world does, then you also have to be willing to give up what no one else would even ever think of.
I think it's essential that these people are doing what Michael Phelps is doing also, right? Because he had a choice. He had tried to decide to do what was easy, right? He can just screw his practice. He can just go and eat all the pizza that he wants, affect his shape and everything. But he decided to do what was right instead. And in turn of, by doing such things, he set himself to be a inspiration for fellow athletes, for new and upcoming budding junior athletes as well, even to people like us as well, who are able to draw inspiration from his ability to do what was right. And then it kind of helped us to push out that greatness in us also and find ways to make us also feel, okay, if I can also emulate what all these champions are doing, that gives me a clear path to where I can be, right? It's providing me an example of what many people could not have done, but it has shown that whatever he did at the end of the day, right, was what brought him to his success.
You know what I feel is wrong with society? Okay, I think Singapore, in general, I don't know, right? Is that I think there's not enough sacrifice in general, right? Okay, let me explain to you what I mean. So, when you read forums and Reddit and whatever, not speak to your friends, right? They all talk about, okay, your work is just a job. Don't kill yourself over it. Do your whatever, maybe minimum, or do what you need to do. Get in, get out, get paid, right? Don't need to go above and beyond for the company because your company won't give a shit about you, so you shouldn't give a shit about your company. But when that happens, right, everybody loses. You lose because you're never going to get anywhere, right? You're never going to get maybe the recognition or the promotion that you probably could achieve if you put in the extra sacrifice and effort. The company's not going to get anywhere if all the employees adopt the same mentality, right? So it's actually not that difficult to sacrifice for yourself, but what's difficult is sacrificing for something above yourself, right? And I think linking back to, our experience, right? I think that's one key attribute that we've always had versus everybody else in the industry that isn't us, right? Because people will know that for us in our work, it's very individual. Yeah, you can sacrifice your time, your relationship to be more successful, right? You can sacrifice your family or whatever not to meet more clients or whatever it is, right? And you will be successful as well. But all these small things, would they bring you to the very top? What it takes to go to the very top, right? As we all have learned over the last, however number of years, right? Is that you need people who are ready to sacrifice for the greater good. And sometimes the greater good doesn't even include themselves. And when you have these kind of people, right, and if you look through history, these are actually the greatest people that are remembered throughout history because they go above and beyond. And as you said, do something that people don't want to do because sacrificing for somebody else that's not yourself is difficult. Yeah. Right? And I think we have done that. Okay, and we are not perfect, but I think we have done that to some degree. And that has contributed largely to the culture and to the success that the business and the organization has, right? That cannot be replicated by a lot of other companies out there. And I feel so sad for those people who say, oh, just do your minimum. Yeah, don't put in extra effort because they won't care about you, so you shouldn't care about them. Then that's a lose-lose. And
all way to live.
Yeah, you live your life like that, right? Well, your life must suck, man.
Your life is a way of teaching you humility at very interesting moments also. Like every time we take one step further, or there's always someone ahead, or someone that's bigger also. Then it's also kind of like, it brings me down to that nature where, okay, I come so far, but there's another mountain to climb. And then if I stop now, if I let anything else discourage me, then who am I actually really letting down? But most of the point, I let myself down also by allowing myself to stop right there.
And I guess if I look back and ask myself, why am I doing all this still, right? People will say for us, we have made decent money, probably comfortable by now. Why do you still want to push for more or further and higher, right? But don't you want to know how far you can go, your ceiling, right? And break through that ceiling and your fullest potential. Yeah. Throughout your live life, your one life well, and find out how far you can go. But to do that, you got to give up some things, right? And I think people who don't see it this way and don't get to experience this kind of life, right, I don't think they're truly living, right? And that's why I think if you're listening to this or watching this, right, I encourage you to reconsider, right, what you're doing for life. And if you have the chance to sacrifice for something that you feel is worth it, not random stuff or stupid things, right, but for something that you feel strongly about.
If you don't have anything you want to sacrifice something for, and what exactly? Even about fulfillment, I just think isn't that quite boring. There's nothing
nothing in your life is big enough, worthy enough that you will sacrifice something.
And I don't think it's the case where you need to have something like right now. But wouldn't you want to wake up every day and have something that you are excited to go and strive for? You don't have it yet, but every day you are, making this one step closer.
Just fight for something and don't be afraid. Just fight for something. And something I share with my clients also, if you don't come from a successful family, then a successful family must come from you, right? If you don't come from a rich family, then thereafter a rich family, it starts with you. You have to be the one to do it. And then to shed this Asian concept that I provide whatever I can, the rest is up to you. Yeah, sure, by all means, but don't take the extra step further and do what other people will not do, and go all the way for yourself, for your family, and make a big impact for everyone.
Yeah. And I guess in wrapping up, right, because I think if we discussed this at length for this episode, ultimately it's a necessity. You should find something that you're willing to sacrifice for, because that at least it gives your life some purpose.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be sacrifice. Doesn't have to be bad, right? It can be good, right? But ultimately, also understand that it's also about being holistic in life, right? Not all for one particular thing and give up everything else, right? But and also as long as you have no regrets.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. Okay,
Right.
so guys, that's it for us for episode 3. You heard it from me, Don, and Rube. So get busy living or get busy dying. Yeah.
Next time.
See you episode 4.
All right.